This beauty is a beast. Hi guys, Eric here and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be having a look at this 2012 Renault Megane RS Red Bull Edition. It is extremely quick, it is beautiful, on the outside at least, and it has a great engine. There's more though. If you live in the Western Cape and you have an original car in good condition you would like me to review, please get in touch. There's an email address in the description box below. The first generation Megane was made to replace the aging Renault 19 in 1995, but it shared the same chassis, engines and gearboxes, albeit modified. The 2-litre petrol version with 112 kilowatts and a 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time of 8.65 seconds was the quickest Megane of the time. This model was considered very safe though, and the safety structure was ahead of most of its rivals at the time. The first official Megane RS launched on September 2004, being based on the second generation Megane released in 2002. It was powered by a 2-litre turbocharged engine producing 165 kilowatts and a 0 to 100 time of 6.5 seconds. Very quick for 2004. It was available in either a 3 or 5-door hatchback and came with electric power steering, Brembo brakes, 6 airbags, electronic stability program and a 6-speed manual gearbox. Most importantly, especially for a hot hatch, it came with a 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating. A Cup version of the Megane RS was released in 2005, the Cup name being an indicator of the Cup chassis option, which included drilled brake discs, stiffened steering, and increased brake master cylinder diameter. It was also 10 kilograms lighter. A year later, in 2006, Renault launched the RS 230 F1 Team R26. What a mouthful. Its name was a celebration of the F1 team winning Grand Prix. It was based on the facelift of the second generation Megane and came with more power at 169 kilowatts and enhanced Cup chassis options. It also included Recaro seats and a limited slip differential. In 2011, an oil-burning Megane RS was released with a 2-litre turbocharged diesel engine, producing 129 kilowatts and 360 Nm of torque. The Cup chassis option also gained electronic stability program that can be completely switched off. The most hardcore version arrived in 2008 with the RS 230 F1 Team R26R. This car was 123 kilograms lighter than the standard car. Unbelievable. Well, for that you got no rear seats, you lost all but one airbag and most soundproofing. At least you still had air conditioning, albeit manually adjustable. Cooler weight-saving measures included a carbon fiber bonnet and carbon fiber shell seatbelt seats. In 2010, the second generation Megane RS arrived in the guise of the Sport 250. Power was up to 184 kilowatts and 340 Newton meters of torque. Standard equipment included Brembo brakes, a rear diffuser, and centrally mounted exhaust outlet. Only a 6-speed manual gearbox was available, of course. The 250 Cup gained a stiffer chassis, limited slip differential, and red-painted Brembo brake calipers. The RS 265 Trophy was introduced in 2011. With 195 kilowatts and 347 Nm of torque, it had a 0 to 100 time of 6 seconds and a top speed of 254 kilometers an hour, faster than an electronically limited BMW M3. This is the RB8 Red Bull Edition, which was released in 2013. This has the same engine and same output as the 265 Trophy. It looks amazing, I must admit. Out of all the hot hatches of the time, the Megane is my absolute favorite, with its wide body kit, absolutely massive 19-inch Steve wheels, and centrally mounted exhaust pipe. It looks awesome. My favourite angle is from the rear three-quarters. It looks menacing yet beautiful and elegant. Well done, Renault. The only criticism I have regarding its looks has to do with the front. Its light seems a bit doe-eyed to me. However, it's still an absolute stunner. What is the interior like? First things first, I have to admit something. When I first saw some photos of the Megane's interior, I thought its build quality looked horrendous and that its buttons belong on a TV remote. However, it looks much better in person. It's not quite up there with VW Golfs, but it isn't that far off either. There are some niggles though. The center console feels a bit loose. And while there are soft touch plastics on top of the dash and on top of the doors, the remaining plastics feel extra hard and scratchy. The general design doesn't have me completely convinced either. It just looks a bit dreary, especially considering the extravagance of the exterior. There's simply too much black plastics and not enough shiny trim to help lift it. The ergonomics could be better as well. For example, to turn on the cruise control, you have to flip a switch next to the handbrake, but the rest of the buttons are found on the steering wheel. Also, the engine start-stop button is on the left-hand side of the center control stack, probably because Renault couldn't be bothered to move it over to the right-hand side for right-hand drive markets. Before I give too much away though, let's take a closer look, starting with the door panel. Well, the doors are absolutely huge and fittingly heavy. They are trimmed with a mixture of black plastics, piano black plastics, faux carbon fiber, and pinches of silver. I really like the door's grab handle, especially this boomerang shape it has. The door handle is made out of shiny metal, and this is needed because the doors, much like the dashboard, just seem a bit too serious for a fun and chuckable hot hatch. The same can be said about the steering wheel. With the exception of red accent stitching and a thin white strip to indicate the top, it just looks like any other Renault steering wheel. Once you take a closer look, however, there are things that stand out. For instance, the rim is really thick and it has perforated leather grips. I also just love the audio controls that are placed on a third stalk. A lot of French cars did it this way in the past, and while it might look a bit dated by today's standards, it's actually very user-friendly once you get used to it. The stalks offer decent dampening, and I just love the graphics for the wiper speeds. It is so simplistic and easy to understand. The dials are quite interesting. They are 3 interlocking circles, which might not seem that unconventional, but the rev counter has a silver background, whereas the speedometer and fuel gauge are black. I think this is Renault's way of accentuating the sporty nature of the RS, much like other manufacturers would put the rev counter right in the middle. The actual digits are rather small, but easy to read because they are backlit with white. The monocolor LCD drives information display communicates your trip information, and you get an analog fuel gauge and, crucially, water temperature gauge. The full color R-Link infotainment system is really easy to understand and has impressively crisp and clear graphics for a car its age. It can either be controlled as a touchscreen or with a cluster of buttons behind the gear lever. It is very well equipped too, with Bluetooth audio, USB input, auxiliary port, and an SD card slot. That is not the most exciting part though. That comes in the form of the RS monitor. It's software that tells you exactly what you and the car are experiencing. It communicates a lap timer, acceleration timer, G-force meter, instant power and torque figures, and steering angle, and I am only scratching the surface. I really like the software. It speaks to the nerd in me. Well, not actually in me. The climate controls mimic the controls of the stereo unit, which at first might seem like a very cohesive design decision. But because most of the buttons look exactly alike, you have to take your eyes off the road to set different temperatures and fan speeds. 3 dials would have been a better design decision. These seats are amazing though. They are proper bucket seats. They don't provide much in the way of cushioning, but they give excellent support. They are rather narrow, however, so larger people might struggle to find a comfortable driving position. When it comes to the Megane storage solutions, they're alright. The glove box is only half its actual size because the fuse box wasn't moved over to the right-hand side for right-hand drive markets. How considerate of Renault. Also, you get 1 cup holder, but truthfully it is just useless because if you have anything taller than a sippy cup, the climate controls are in the way. So Renault did not think that one through. Thankfully, the door pockets are of a very decent size. You get a tray compartment in front of the gear lever and a very decent storage space underneath the center armrest. Get in the back and things aren't that great. While knee room is quite impressive considering how small it is back here, headroom is just, it's minimal. It's minimal. Also, these windows are just ridiculously small and tinted and fixed. So with the black headliner, it does feel, let's be kind, let's say claustrophobic back here. Thankfully, you do get 2 cup holders, which is interesting, a center armrest, and another storage space behind the front center armrest. So, you know, there's that. Now for the boot. Well, it is a very decent size of 344 litres, but that's kind of where the good points end, because the rear seats can fold down in a 60-40 split, but they don't fold completely flat. In fact, they only go down till about this angle, limiting practicality a bit. Also, you don't get any tethering hooks or grocery hooks or 12-volt socket either. Lastly, and I think most importantly, the actual boot opening is quite small and narrow, so putting in smaller objects will not be an issue, but bigger boxes will become a problem. So the interior isn't as dramatic as the exterior. That's alright. A lot of people prefer not to sit in a glitter ball like I do. What is the driving experience like? Well, whatever drawbacks the interior might have raised, most everything is forgiven when you start to drive it. Let's start with driving around town. Well, all the controls are nice and light, and the brakes feel progressive without feeling too grabby. I'm actually really surprised by how well the Megane traverses the city, especially considering its sporty nature. My favorite aspect, however, has to be this engine. It is as though it has a split personality. It is more than happy with just pondering about town at low RPMs, with no more urgency than a 1.2 litre turbo. Put your foot down, however, and wait for the turbos to kick in, and it just absolutely explodes. I love that. It isn't perfect though. One thing that really stands out is this firm ride. This must be the most stiff suspension setup I have ever encountered. Another thing is rearward visibility. It is not that good. Thankfully, you do get rear park distance control as standard, so parking won't be that much of a nightmare. Out on the open road, and one thing immediately jumps out at me. It's really quiet in here. Noise suppression is excellent in the RS, which is surprising considering the class of this vehicle. The only thing you hear is a slight whistle coming from the door mirrors, and the squeak from the suspension, but that is only with this car. The gearing is also excellent. At our national speed limit, the engine ticks over at 2,700 RPM, which adds to this odd sense of serenity in here. It isn't perfect though. The ride remains extremely firm, and while the seats are supportive, they don't provide enough cushioning to make this car a true long-distance cruiser. The aforementioned suspension is stiff for a reason. A good reason. If you're interested in a hot hatch that is loads of fun to drive, look no further. I'm experiencing something brand new with the Megane. There's so little body roll in the corners that it feels as though the car is pivoting around you. Now, I've heard this term on another channel before, but it is the only way to truly describe the sensation. The steering feels extremely direct, the brakes feel strong, the engine feels just as strong, and this gearbox loves to be rushed. This is a fun car. When it comes to the Megane RS's rivals, you're actually quite spoiled for choice. You can get a Golf 6 or Golf 7R. They have amazing interiors and they're quite sporty, but not quite as fun to drive as the Megane RS. You can also have the Audi S3, which is essentially a Golf R at a matric farewell. The Focus ST might be a bit down on power, but it is a lot of fun to drive and it's slightly more comfortable. Lastly is the Peugeot 308 GTI, definitely the wild card of the bunch. They have great interiors and they're relatively rare. One thing to keep in mind though is that the driving position will not be for everyone. This Megane really impressed me. Not only is it achingly beautiful, it has an amazing engine, light and precise controls, and excellent driving dynamics. The only criticisms I have are its less than inspired interior design and a harsh ride. So not for 80-year-olds that are young at heart. For everybody else though, it rocks. Thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. If you enjoyed the review, please give it a thumbs up as it makes the world of difference to my channel. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe and get notified of upcoming reviews. I have some very interesting things lined up for you guys, so stay tuned. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Until next time, bye.